Hola friends, welcome to the Medicine, Marriage, and Money YouTube channel, the only channel for physicians who want to achieve marital interdependence and financial freedom together. On this channel, you will learn how to show up as the best version of yourself so that you can love intentionally and build a more financially savvy relationship with your spouse. And I am your host, a physician mom, a doctor's wife, a Gottman leader, a certified life and marriage coach, Dr. Kate Mangona. Welcome. Bienvenidos.
Mostly, it's being there for each other. It's understanding where your couple is in life, meeting their goals, what they want to do. And then being able to understand that you're in a shared space, you're in a shared environment, and you're going to share some of those responsibilities. But at the same time, knowing that you're both in sync with what your goals are, and so that you can support yourself better. So that's part of it.
For a long marriage, you have to understand all those hats that you have, and you have to find space, time, and fit all those hats. And it's a challenge to be able to do that equally, right? So you're going to have some priorities that are going to come to you at different periods. You're going to have different challenges at different periods where you cannot fit one, and we'll talk about those in a second. But having these relationships last for a long time, you have to recognize what's happening not only between you.
Okay, well, I'm going to start recording here. And please welcome my two guests on today's show of Medicine, Marriage, and Money, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, who is a dual board certified anesthesiologist and interventional pain management physician. She's also a medical expert, a professor, an author, speaker, podcaster, entrepreneur, and mastermind facilitator. Joining her today is her beloved Tomas Rodriguez. They have been together for 27 years, and he is an engineer with an MBA and a master of their entrepreneurial adventures. So I am so excited to have you guys. You sound like an entrepreneur power couple right here with us on stage today.
Well, we're very excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here. Yes.
Yes.
And actually, I have to tell you that we've been married for 27 years, but before then, we were Sky High School sweethearts. So we were for almost 8 years before we got married. So add 8 to those, 27.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And plus you have twins, a boy and a girl.
We do, yes.
Right? 16 years old. So, well, I like to always start with my hardest question first. My hardest question is, what is your definition of marital interdependence?
Marital interdependence.
So I think we had an opportunity to get to know each other since we were young, right? So we started at 16 and we got together when we were 17 and it kept going from there. So I think, marital independence, right? There's a lot of things that go on in a marriage, and in life in general, especially if you're partners for a long time. So, it's a long time. So, it's mostly, it's being there for each other. It's understanding where your couple is in life, meeting their goals, what they want to do. And then being able to understand that you're in a shared space, you're in a shared environment, and you're going to share some of those responsibilities. But at the same time, knowing that you're both in sync with what your goals are, and so that you can support yourself better. So that's part of it. That's part of it.
Yeah, and sync with goals.
Yeah, I think that we've been through so much together. It's right now, we've been since high school. So he went through medical school. We went through businesses together. We're in business together. So it's hard to draw that line. Mm-hmm. We are friends. We're parents together. We're coupled to each other. And for a long marriage, you have to understand all those hats that you have. Mm-hmm. And you have to find space, time, and fit all those hats. And it's a challenge to be able to do that equally, right? So you're going to have some priorities that are going to come to you at different periods. You're going to have different challenges at different periods where you cannot feed one, and we'll talk about those in a second. But having these relationships last for a long time, you have to recognize what's happening not only between you, for you. Like many times we come and it's all for me, 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 me. But the truth is that it's a couple. So we have to understand first that we're both people making a group, which is our team, our unit, and then that we are one thing between us, one thing individually, and one thing in front of other people, including our family. So we have to understand those roles and how that works and how that changes all the time.
Ah, yes, good. And take us back to when you were 16, 17.
He's so handsome,
like,
right?
what did that look like? How did you fall in love?
We were in different high schools. We had a mutual friend who introduced us, and we became really good friends, at around 16. And then at around 17, I guess we started.
He couldn't resist me.
That's right. And then so at 17, we got together and kind of formalized our relationship, and it started going from there. And so, we both went to different colleges eventually, but it never fizzled. It always kept going. We always had a good relationship. We've never split. So
we never fought before getting married either.
That's true.
Like we had 0 fights, and we were 3 hours away during college, and every single weekend he come and he drove to see me, to visit me during all the years of college. So after we were
then what about
married,
after you were married?
Things changed because, and I'm going to tell you what changed it. The pill that changed it, and I didn't recognize it for 5 years. And I think that the pill is the reason for the failure of many marriages in the early life, because in the early stages of the marriage, because your hormones change, and I completely changed. Like I was angry all the time, and I could not recognize what it was, and then everything was his fault. I don't know how he didn't drop me at my parents' house and left me there forever. He's extremely patient, I have to say, because looking back, I really felt angry to the point my blood pressure was up. I didn't recognize it, and all this we recognize when we try to have children. So we had I was in the pill for 5 years, and then I stopped the pill and I changed back to my normal, and I felt it, and then my blood pressure was normal, and then suddenly there were no problems. I was like, oh my goodness, it's just such a different person. But during those 5 years, like having come from no fights at all during the first almost 8 years of our courtship stages, and then getting married, like it was like a switch. So that's what happened. It was really a clinical thing, and I think that in medicine, being that we're doctors here talking, that's something that now that I'm in a functional medicine practice that we're opening in August, that's something that we want to make sure that we deliver the message that we should measure everything. We should measure those hormones. Like if you're having marital problems, when something happened in your body that you changed, and that's what happened to us, and that's what affected our marriage during those years. Like, oh my goodness, you can ask him. Here you go.
Yeah, it was tough because for me psychologically, I figured, well, she must have some issue with marriage, right? Now that she's married, it might be all different in her mind. So, but the commitment was there for me. It was a tough couple of first years. The divorce word was never in my head. Nobody put it in my head. Nobody whispered it in my ear. Good thing, because things might have been different. But the commitment was there, and I was always like, well, we'll work through it and see what happens. It was just tough, but I never had a thought of ending it or anything like that. And one thing that you mentioned that I think is really important is you need to be open to the possibilities of what is going on, right? I mean, back then we were kids, right? But even now, when you're older and you may face issues and you might feel a little depressed and whatever, we're pattern seekers, right? So we try to assign things to other things. Like something might happen and I might say, oh, but this is because you X, Y, and Z, when it just might be that I'm low on some hormone, right? And I'm just reacting to it. So we need to be open to the possibilities. And I think in a marriage, that's very important, to be open to the possibilities of what's going along in your body and what's happening in your life that might be affecting the relationship or your perception or her perception of what's going on.
Ah, right. Yeah. Because I've had guests come on and talk about before about like just different sexual changes, right, that happen when in between your 20s, 30s, 40s, after, before kids, after kids, and how sometimes you don't know. Well, it's because your partner is in pain, and or some people don't know how to even identify that they need to go see somebody who's specializes in some issue that they might be having physically that's
But it's not
affecting
only about
their
intimacy, like
intimate
it's the
life.
communication. The
So,
communication breaks down because it wasn't,
okay.
in our case, it wasn't a problem of intimacy. It was like being like upset at everything all the time, like desire, and then really bodily, like my blood pressure was higher, and then that changes. And or if somebody, like for example, as people age, testosterone goes down, it goes down. Like women, we only have 1/10 of what men have, and that decreases dramatic, right, when you don't have as much. So your mood changes again, and all these things we're not measuring. And as physicians, we really need to start measuring this and really treating it appropriately, instead of like giving you an antidepressant or something like that. You just go measure your body, and then boom, and then it changes back to what it was. And it can affect your sleep. And like if you don't sleep well, you're not going to present yourself well in your relationship with anybody. You're going to be angry, right? So that's how it changes. Sexual definitely can be part of it, but it's a mixture of things.
Okay. So is this something that you do like in your practice? Do you help couple like measure certain hormones or certain things to figure out types of relationship issues? Or
so now
how did you
definitely
become
going to be
educated
a
in
part of my practice. I'm transitioning from being interventional pain management to being functional medicine, lifestyle medicine. We have regenerative medicine component, and that combination we're calling innovative medicine. So
Okay.
in my pain management practice, I was noticing people who would come after their 40s. Obviously, the hormonal thing with the pill was when we were young, but you notice all these patients were coming, and they come on an antidepressant, they come on an Ambien or something to sleep, and they come maybe on an opioid, and nobody has measured anything of other changes in their body besides their CBC and their CAM, and maybe some lipid profile, and for hormones they do thyroid, and that's it, and the UA. Like that's your yearly profile. And when I went to my primer and I said, can you please measure these things? They told me, oh, you're too young. It's like, that doesn't matter. Like I want it to be measured. I want to know what's going on, because then I had patients with bone fractures, right? But nobody had measured their testosterone levels to see, and their vitamin D, and optimizing all these things. So nobody who would come to the practice with these problems were optimized. So now I was looking for answers, and I found like integrative medicine, functional medicine, and there's different associations and societies where you can go and get trained on these things. So that's what we started to do. And that gives you a different perspective in medicine, where you can get somebody and get them like a more profound, really looking for the why of things, for the root cause, rather than just treating symptoms, which in my case, that's what I was doing, because they come to me, they're already on all these things, and I just have at that point to treat symptoms. And unfortunately, the system doesn't provide for us to really take care of those patients, like changing their lifestyle, changing the diet, the sleep, the stress levels, just how we can work with that, and then do that and pair it with what the real state of the body, micronutrients, how the gut's doing. We can measure genetic stuff to see how they react to different things, and hormones. Like hormones, the adrenal system is so important, and it doesn't really is not given the importance. And we can see how we can transform those patients and transform that story, and then have them not only live but really thrive and live the best life they can. Yes.
Got it. Okay. And like, do you mean like cortisol? And
so
what
we're
are
going
some
to be
other things you
measuring
measure
a
with
lot
the
of
adrenal system?
the female hormones, the male hormones, the LH. We're going to be measuring all the testosterone, not only testosterone, but you measure free and percentage, and then the progesterone and the estrogen and all those. Yeah.
Okay. And did you take what was it? What was your training? Did you say there was
So
the
there's
integrative
different
medicine fellowship?
societies. that you can go to. My curiosity started at one called A4M, which is an anti-aging society. So you can go through that A4M. You can go through there's right now we're studying for the board of lifestyle medicine. So there's another one where we want to do like more natural way of dealing with these changes. And all these are societies and their fellowships and diplomas that you get after you finish your residency. Yeah, you can train on
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
So are they run by like MDs or DOs?
And after you train on those, then you go and you get more training and keep studying, and then you find all this. And I think it's like a whole balance between like naturopathic medicine, for example, and conventional medicine. It's like a good marriage of those where you can try to find the healing within yourself. And you can cause disease reversal of disease, diabetes, and hypertension, and all these things you can reverse if you apply these methods. And you don't have to be just treating symptoms. So when I was, later, as I said, I went to my primary physician. I want these things to be measured. He didn't want to measure it. Then I said, I'm going to look for another option. I looked for another option. My physician really implemented, my new one implemented these changes. And then I became, studying more of that area of medicine. And that's what we're doing now.
Okay. Okay. And so how has this all affected your marriage?
In terms of hormone thing, I think we're good now, understanding and recognizing all these changes. And that's been good. It has helped us understand, like listen to each other and look for other alternatives rather than just scream at each other. We've had a lot of mindset work that we've done, especially for our mastermind. We have what we call a physician entrepreneur maxAllure mastermind, and maxAllure will become like maxAllure, like achieving maximum attraction. So attracting all the good things to you, attracting people who think alike. And we've done a lot of work of mindset, which is part of what gets to be done in this type of medicine. And we have the time for dealing with, in that way with our patients. So I think we've done that. We're teaching it, we work on that. It's a lot of work that you have to do. It's intentional activity and thought processing all the time. And we're also transmitting that to our children now. We have teenagers, teen twins, boy and a girl, and we're teaching those things early to them, right?
Yeah, tell me, can you give me some examples of how you raise that, like empower them?
Especially with all the work that we've done with mindset work and stuff. Yeah, we talk to them about different things. Sometimes, taking responsibility. Things like a lot of the things that Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and people like that talk about. We have these conversations in the car on the way back from school, and sometimes we talk about those kind of things, and so they understand the key concepts, and we try to show them how they need to look into the future. They don't need to know exactly what they need to do, right? They don't need to tell me I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to study this and I'm going to do that. They don't need to do that, but they need to at least to start understanding what are the tool sets that they're going to need to be successful, right? And we didn't have that when we were kids, right? When we were kids, it was pretty much get a job, work, save some money, and someday you'll retire and hopefully you'll have some good time then, right? I mean, it's just get out there and work, right? We didn't have that. I'm not to blame our parents, which were wonderful, right? But it's just, that's not the environment we grew up in. That's the environment they're growing up in, right? The environment they're growing up in is, hey, consider things like real estate investment, right? Consider things like maybe you buy a house early, maybe you buy a duplex and do house hacking. That's just talking about real estate, but also consider about having plans, right? Understanding what your vision is, understanding what your priorities are, setting goals, what Myrdalis said earlier. How to treat others, and how to be happy. How to be happy. How to take intentional action towards your goals, right? And a lot of those things that we teach in the mastermind, right? Because we want to make sure that, as I said before, taking responsibility, just that when you do mindset work, it involves a lot, right? Because just learning how to do that, right? In a sense of a lot of people say, oh, my things are bad at work because my managers don't do this because somebody else did that, because somebody doesn't let me do this, right? And a lot of taking responsibility is acknowledging, well, wait a minute, do I have a role in this? Am I not being persuasive enough? Do I need to take control of this situation? Is there anything I can do to modify it, instead of, pointing fingers? When you talk about self-compassion, when you talk about things like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, these are a lot of things that come up, right? So
Those are going to help them in their health, right? Because if they know how to manage these things, they'll know also how to be healthier and to be happier and present in a better way to others. We're counting on what we're telling them sticks. We know that we've seen some signs, like they recognize, where we go out and they recognize things that we have mentioned to them. They say,
Yeah.
and even at class, like they know, oh, I know that, that's growth. Like this last year, they talked to them about growth mindset, and they knew what they were talking, and they already, they were ahead of the curve there.
Well, the thing with kids, right, is that they will,
Yeah.
things will kick in by experience, right? It's like, oh yeah, that sounds really good, but I'm not really sure where that applies in my life at 16, right? But things will happen in the future, and they'll go like, oh,
Right.
wait a minute. They'll recognize that there are things that they've learned in the past that might be useful, and then they might go back to it, right? Or somebody might be blaming them of something, or they might be complaining of something, right? As I talked about taking responsibility, and it might jump into their mind and say, wait a minute, what do I need to do on this issue? Right? I need to take responsibility. They'll remember, Jim Rohn or whatever, and so it'll kick in. I'm
Yeah, it'll eventually all kick in, and you're their two most important models in their life. Well, initially, I don't know if they have like sports figures now or teachers, but you are their main source.
Yeah, and we're not.
How to
And
learn all
one thing
this
that
stuff right
as
now.
parents, as couples,
So
you really have to come together, and that can be a challenge at times, because I might be something might have happened at work that I'm just concentrated, focused on that, and I have this other focus, and they have a different focus, and we come from different points of view into the same situation, and we might not agree on how that is, and then as parents, we have to really try to come together, which can be a challenge at times, and be like that single voice, but we cannot let others raise our children, right? We cannot say it's the fault of the TV, the fault of the internet, and we know how challenging that is, and our friends and their friends and their other influences, which you're fighting against all the time. So as parents, we have to look for other tools that we might be able to use, so that we can at least, show them, hopefully, that when you see those things on internet and where you're with your friends, they can make the right choices. So we have to, it's our responsibility. We chose to be parents. We're lucky. We're very fortunate that we can be parents of two wonderful, healthy creatures. And I don't know how I've been so fortunate of being, have children like they are. Like I told my son the other day, my chest didn't have enough space for my heart because I was so proud of him. But you have to look for these tools, and it's your responsibility. You chose to be a parent, and if you didn't choose, then you have a child anyways, and that should be our main priority when we have that child, to take care of them. That's our main job. Like that, I'm a physician, and I love being a physician, and we study so much to be physicians, but it's my number one job, that no matter what I'm doing, if my child needs help, that's it, and then hopefully when they hit that age, I'm hoping that they always want to come and need us in some way, but that you do this, you set the base for what that's going to be. And that's what we've decided to do, before they were born. In our case, we haven't talked about this, but in our case, after 5 years of being married, after 8 years of, being boyfriend, girlfriend. So that's 13 years there, right? That we've been together before considering having a child. And we had 5 other years of struggle. So we went through in vitro, and in vitro, talking about hormonal changes, that was quite there. And then that, so all that time we were already talking about how we were going to raise these children. And then we came to jump over to the pregnancy was like a really very challenging pregnancy. I was in bed rest for 11 weeks. I went to bed rest at 19 weeks. They were born at 30 weeks, so very preemies, very tiny, low APGARs, 2 and 5. We had like, babies who don't cry, who are not pink, who are not, they're blue, limb, not responsive, not breathing, not all these things, plus an unexpected craniofacial deficiency, craniofacial defect, and surgeries, and it's been very challenging. And we had the opportunity, I think, as a couple to have all that time to be together, to know each other, and to really become really good friends, really good partners, to be able to go through all that. So
did you have any, when you were going through that, like, did your relationship with each other experience any stress?
I guess so. There was stresses there, and some of them we might have noticed, some of them we didn't. I think with the kids, we were so focused on getting them where they needed to be, that you kind of so focused on that sometimes, you can lose focus a little bit on the relationship. One thing that helped us a lot, of course, was what Myrdalis said, that we had so much time together before. So even though as a couple, the thing is, your values and your goals are never going to be 100% aligned, and that's okay, right? But the basics are there, right? You want things like happiness. You want things like a better future. You want to have time for family. You want to have time for friends. So the basics are there, right? So given that, I think that you just grow together and push those priorities together. And as long as you understand the commitment and what you want to do, then you get through it. But were there challenges? Yes, and that's normal. But I think recognizing that that's normal is important.
Yes. Exactly. Totally. And I like that point you just hit on about how your values and goals might not always be aligned. So can you give me an example of when you, Tomas, and Myrdalis, your value or your goal, maybe a tangible goal you had, wasn't exactly aligned?
So I think in our case, one example is, for example, I don't know a specific goal, but the way we approach things is different. So sometimes, for example, Myrdalis is very entrepreneurial, where I'm a little bit entrepreneurial, but I'm mostly a manager. And so a lot of things like her goals might be, let's get this done. Let's get out there and do these 5 things and let's start working on them, right? Where in my case, I may say, let's consider what we want to do. Let's plan this a little bit more. And it kind of makes her go crazy, right? And
I want to go, and he's like, no, where are you going? Like, we have to do this. Like, oh yes,
he wants to think about it.
Too much.
Talk about all the pros and cons.
That's a quick way of saying it.
Yeah, and so, but in a sense that helps. It helps us complement each other. And one of the things we had mentioned about when we started this. The pain management clinic, right? I was home with the kids, and my wife left the hospital, and she said, "Hey, why don't you become the manager?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I can do that, right?" So I became her manager for 7 years, and there it's where it really kicks in, right? Our manager, yeah. There is where it really kicks in, right? The thing about being aligned or not being aligned, right? Like, for example, in order for us to get the Center of Excellence Award, right, that requires a manager, right, to manage that process. But in order to have a clinic that would be worthy of getting that award, then that requires vision, and that requires setting up, a comprehensive practice and all these kind of things. That's where she came in, So we did complement each other there. But but that's kind of where it is. I don't know if I completely answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you did. And I also wanted to touch on finance, so as the manager, are you in charge of the finance for the business and at home, or do you guys share that?
We share it.
Share
accounts? We definitely share it. A lot of the decisions we share, I may do a lot of the processing aspect of it, right? Especially when she was so busy with patients, right? So things come in the door and the budgets and running it through the software and making those kind of things and getting them in line and making payments and that kind of stuff. But with regards to where you put your money and how you spend it, we try right? We try as best we can to kind of discuss what is this, and now that we've done a lot of mindset work and a lot of that kind of stuff, and planning, how does this align to our goals, right? And how does this address our why?
So usually what happens is that, so for the first part of our marriage, we both had jobs, and we would put everything into an account and we would spend it all. We had so much fun during that period of time. Like we traveled, we went everywhere. We spent and
You spent all your money. Okay, you put into account, you spent everything.
House, everything. We had everything. We were so much fun. And then the kids came.
Yeah.
And we really, as I told you, like we took that very seriously, and we wanted one of us to stay home. So I was able to negotiate a job where at the time that transfer would cover for both of our salaries that we had at the time and more. So I negotiated that salary for this new position, and then that allowed us for him to stay home. And then after that, we opened our clinic. So he was at the clinic and we grew our business together. We had 2 clinics. We had for pain management, we had an anti-aging, we have a regenerative medicine part, and we even went into entertainment business together. So we released a singer in Miami. That's something that we did, and I was at that time. This is only 6 years ago, and so my job was always in all these other things except the entertainment. Like he was the one like spearheading the entertainment. Like I find the resources and the ideas and everything, and then he manages it. And then he might find like the IT tools or all these technological tools to be able to process. But in terms of the big plans and the resources and where things are going to be going, I identify those, and then we go on together. We plan for it.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like you guys are both very self-motivated, right? Like not one of you is nagging the other one, do this, do that. Because I coach a lot of couples, and some of them have this problem where they feel like they have to encourage the other spouse to find something they're passionate about, or make money, or do this certain thing with the kids, or right? Has that ever been an issue for you? Or if not, have you seen it around you, like in your culture?
Sure. I mean, it's been an issue for us, right? I mean, I think there's been motivation kind of goes up and down, and depending on where you are in your life and what you want to do, you reach certain levels in your life where you're like, well, have I done what I wanted to do, right? Maybe not when you're 25, but maybe when you're 45, right? And so those things do affect. As I said, we've always had common goals of the common basic goals. So we do support each other and try to stimulate each other and try to make sure that we're both engaged on what we want to do. And she has more energy in that space, I think. Like she's more, as I said, she's more entrepreneurial. So she's always got the 5th idea of what she wants to go do, right? And the other 4 are kind of in progress. So she's more of a go-getter in that sense. So I've needed more help with that. But at this point of our lives, and what we've learned and everything, it's all about helping other people. It's all about making sure that what we're doing is meaningful. When you get older, you think about impact and leaving a legacy and helping others and making the world a little bit better, right? So we've struggled with that a little bit more, me than her. But I think that, as we talked, it takes a considerable level of mindset work to then change your attitudes and kind of get better alignment and get that positive attitude moving forward. Want to add anything to that?
And I think that's what brought us to the maxAllure Mastermind. So we have this mastermind for physician entrepreneurs. We meet once a week for 6 months, and we help them. They come to us either because they have a business and that hasn't really acquired momentum, or they have an idea for a business, or they have no idea what they're gonna do. Like they feel lost, overwhelmed, or even burnout. Because I've experienced burnout, and as a physician a couple of times, and entrepreneurship is really what has helped me and has helped so many around us. So talking about around us, you see how people who are entrepreneurial, they in medicine, which is what we're trying to do, what our niche is, they feel better about themselves, so they present better to their patients because they have control of their life. So we help them design their physician life. And I think in the mastermind, for both of us, we have found that meaning, like that contribution. And it's something that is really very fulfilling when you have all these physicians who come to you, and the transformation that happens, even just, like in 1-2 months, we have examples of them that been so successful in such a short period of time, where they didn't wait to act, and they came to us, and we've been able to be part of these lives. It's not only their lives, as I see it, it's their lives, their families, their couples. You coach couples, so we coach them. Like, if there's a physician entrepreneur who wants to come to our mastermind and they have a couple, they can come to the mastermind at no extra cost, and they can be part of it. So we coach them as well together as entrepreneurs. And it's also for those patients that they're going to see, for those friends, for their professional relationships, because we know that once they have that control, once they have, because having happiness in your life, like, he can tell you the definition of happiness, like, by that, one of the things is really being, doing things that are meaningful to you, and then that you have control over, right? That's the basis of happiness. And we have found that in the mastermind, and our physicians are finding, once they have that as a couple or as independent, that they're able to contribute. So I think that
And do you coach physicians who are trying to launch
so
their
if
own
you are a
practice?
physician who wants to
Is that
launch
what
your own
you're doing?
practice, if you're a physician who wants to launch either a physical or a digital product or service, like being a coach, or even having real estate investments, or doing like a product that you want to launch, what we do is that we take you through our curriculum and our meetings, and we have accountability, support, and coaching. We have coaching in front of everybody. If you tell me, you say, Kate, you come to me and you say, you know what, I have my business, but I want really to take it to the next level, and I really want to work on branding, for example. Let's say that. So we have a curriculum that we cover that most members in our mastermind have already asked us about. So we just go through that so that everybody's covered. And then you say, you know what, I like how X doctor does it. They're so successful, and I really want to work like them. Can you get them to coach me? So I call Dr. X, and that's how, like Letty and Kenny have coached our people too in our mastermind. And I say, hey, can you come and coach? I have this Dr. Kate Mancona, who wants to work on branding, and this is a branding expert who's a physician who's done so well. I say, okay, yes, I'll go there, and then they come and coach you in front of our group.
Yeah, and I think what we've done is that what we've seen is we've seen several other physicians who have been successful, right? And we've seen the process that we've gone through ourselves, and we've identified what we call six pillars of success, right? 6 general areas that we see as common themes that keep coming up. And so within those areas, like mindset, wellness, your finances, etc., within those areas, we provide key trainings. And the idea is that we take them through the process, right? We take them through the process where first they see the possibilities, they understand that they're capable to do it, they understand their values, then they set up their goals. And then the key is that we teach them what are the key habits that they should be putting in place so that this can be sustained long term. And that's a key thing, right? Because the key thing is, we're doing the mastermind, they're all gung-ho and all enthusiastic and everybody's supporting everybody. But if you don't put these habits in place, if you don't build these things into your life and into your lifestyle, then you're not going to make it sustainable, right? You're going to have to join some other group to keep the momentum going.
After
which is
the
still
mastermind,
good,
they need to be able to continue.
That's what we've done, and that's the key. How do you make it? How do you build it? And then how do you make it sustainable so that you become a different person, right? You become the person you need to be successful.
Well, perfect. Yeah. And do you have any closing thoughts or anything, we haven't shared in terms of medicine, marriage, or money, or just any take-home points you want to give, our audience today?
Well, one of the things that we have a podcast is called Design Your Physician Life, and we invite you all to go to our podcast and to our maxAllure website. Is maxallure.com, maxallure. But one of the things that I like to do in my in our podcast is to give specific tips to the people who are listening to us so that they can immediately go and implement. So I'm going to give like a couple, and then if you want to give a couple as couples. So I think that we've given some.
Yes, please do.
So you've heard us talking about trying to understand each other, where we're each other coming from. I have to tell you that things are not going to be perfect. But the first solution should not go like the first solution should not go, I'm going to divorce you or something like that. Like, you really have to try to understand, because it takes a lot of work to have a marriage, any relationship, whatever you are. And the easiest thing is to run away. The easiest thing is like, don't talk to me. I think that we should take our time first and get a time out. Like as a couple, if you cannot have that conversation before you say something that's really going to be hurtful, because it's going to be so liberating to say something hurtful, but is it going to be meaningful in the long run? So just take that time before you do that. Take a break. I'm not telling you to live separate. Just take a break away from that conversation. That's one of the things. Number 2, really try to have habits for the relationship and understand where you are as a couple, where each individual is, what their goals are individually, so that then you can plan together. So planning is a big thing. And as Tomas told you, like, I'm very spontaneous and I want to do all these things. And the thing that he's really helped us with as a couple is really that planning part of it. It's really important as a couple. I'm going to leave it there, and then I'm going to have him.
I'll just close with one, right? I think that one thing that's very important is to obviously understand that you've made a commitment, right? And when you look at your goals, and it also applies to your marriage, is to try to understand, who do you need to be? What kind of person, what type of person do you need to be to make this successful, right? And to make decisions also based on that basis, right? So you love your couple, and that's important, but I think it's also very important that the reason you do the things is not only because you love this person, but it's because this is the person you are. This is the kind of person that you are. If you're going to be faithful to your wife, that's a great thing, right? But don't just do it because you love her, because if your love starts waning, then you're going to start looking the other way, right? You do it because that's the kind of man that you are, right? That's the kind of woman that you are. And that's the important thing. Decide who you need to be successful in everything, including your marriage. And act accordingly and grow accordingly. Have a growth mindset and go after it.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thanks for having us. It's been a great time.
What an amazing session with Tomas and Dr. Myrdalis. So from this episode, we got so many amazing points, and I really think that they summed it up amazingly at the end. But my first take-home point: it is normal to not always be on the same page as your spouse. It is normal to not always have your goals and your values aligned, and that's okay. Maybe you want to sit down and talk about it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can just recognize that it is normal. Number 2, who do you want to be? If you have a goal about being an amazing, like teaching your child about kindness, or teaching them about mathematics, or maybe even your physician, and most of you are physicians, taking care of your patients in your hospital, and something comes up, right? Like something comes up, like the administration tells you can no longer treat them with this because it's not approved by insurance, and you get all upset. Like there's roadblocks that will come in your way as a parent, as a spouse, as a physician. Ask yourself, remind yourself, who do you want to be in this situation? Who did you choose to be? And that might remind you, he gave this great example, Tomas did, like for being, if you're a husband or wife and you've decided you want to be faithful, but because you love your spouse, what if that love or that like wanes or waxes because you had an explosive fight and you don't feel so in love anymore? Does that mean you're going to become unfaithful? Or did you decide you wanted to be a certain way? Same thing with becoming, if you're a physician and you can no longer provide treatment a certain way to your patients because there was a roadblock. well, how do you want to be? How do you still want to be as a physician in that situation? Using all the tools and resources that you have in order to give them the best what they can receive at that moment? Do you want to go fight, right? Do the peer-to-peers, write your letters, figure out, go march on Capitol Hill in your certain organizations, whether it's ACR, AMA, that kind of a thing. Figure out who it is you want to be in order to reach and stand by your goals when roadblocks get in your way. And number 3, I had not really spoken about this much in my podcasts before, but Myrdalis mentioned a really good point about, checking hormone levels. And if things just were off, right? If you're angry all the time, does that mean you need to be on medication? Does that mean you need to be in a mastermind or have a therapist, a coach, somebody to talk about your feelings with? Does it mean something might be off in your body? Maybe you're not having enough sleep. Maybe your levels, some sort of your cortisol or your testosterone, something, your progesterone is just not right. So maybe using what you can find somebody to help you figure that out. Figure out if you're getting enough sleep. Figure out if, one of your hormones is off. And then talk to somebody, right? But I think the point is you don't just have to continue suffering and chalk it up as, oh, this is the normal aging process or this is just normal. If you talk to people, talk to your physician, get a recommendation for another physician who may be oriented into the integrative lifestyle medicine, maybe you'll discover something that just changes your life. And I hope you all walk away asking yourself, what is it that I want to do with my spouse to reignite the sparks today? What are big goals am I working on that I can actually do on my own without my spouse standing right next to me? What big goals do I have that my spouse may want to join in with me? And what kind of parent do I want to be? And how can I start today? So much love, my friends. Please follow me at Kate Mangona MD on Instagram. I did change. I've stopped using the Medicine, Marriage, and Money. I'm using more of the Kate Mangona MD on Instagram. And much love to you and your spouse. If you are finding the concepts I teach in these episodes useful and want more in-depth and personalized support for your relationship, consider this your invitation to join me in creating the most connected and intimate relationship with your spouse that you could dream of. Go to www.medicinemarriageandmoney.com right now and download my 18-page medical marriage survival guide and workbook at no cost to you. I also have a 6-day marriage challenge, which goes over the 6 predictors of divorce at no cost to you. These have been known to decrease fighting, rumination, and grudges between you and your loved one. If you want to take it a step farther, really enhance the joy and connection in the most intimate relationship in your life, sign up for my 8-week Making Marriage Work program today at medicinemarriageandmoney.com. Thanks for leaving us a stellar review, subscribing, and sharing with your friends on social media. You have the power to improve someone else's life and marriage simply by sharing this episode. Much love to you and your spouse. You're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Adios, my friends. The content of this episode is not intended to be a substitute for professional, medical, or financial advice. The opinions provided on this episode are those of myself or the invited guest alone. They do not represent the opinions of any particular institution. Always seek the advice of your physician or financial advisor with any questions you may have of a medical condition or financial plan. This is for your entertainment only.